Bobby Baggio, and I want to talk a little bit about mutually agreed upon success. Sometimes we think success is different things, and success generally is different to each one of us. But when you're working in a virtual environment, one of the most important things you can do is have very clear expectations. And the reason expectations are so important is because in a virtual environment, you're not measuring people by the amount of time they spend in an office. You're measuring by results. And in order for people to achieve the results you want them to achieve, they have to know what's expected of them. They need to have a clear definition of their roles. You need to provide them with timely feedback. You need to connect. You need to have this mutual understanding of, I know what I want you to do. I'm conveying it to you. You're telling me you understand. And together we're going to be able to achieve this expected result. So not only is it important that you have mutually agreed upon expectations for the outcome, but you need mutually agreed upon expectations all along the way. You need to trust each other. You need to feel comfortable with being honest, with being able to say, there's something wrong here. This isn't working the way I thought it was. I thought this is what you wanted. And now it's changed to this. I'm confused. You need to be comfortable with that kind of communication and that kind of honesty. You also need to give people the tools that they need to be successful. Whether it's technology, whether it's training in communications or collaboration or technical knowledge, you need to give them operationally what they need. And they need feedback. You can't kind of just throw the line out in the lake and hope the fish gets it. You need to all along the way touch bases, have those touch points where you're checking in with people so that if something goes off track, you can pick up on it early. Mutually agreed upon success is what will bring the results. Let's take a look at it. Performance appraisals are what we generally use in organizations and corporations to measure an employee's performance, to measure how a worker is performing. Sort of the way we use grades in education. Performance appraisals are only meaningful when they contribute to the employee's success. They've been used widely in the latter part of the 20th century. And truthfully, they were highly popular, although mildly, if even mildly effective. Generally, they're done on an annual basis with HR and the supervisor or the manager, and generally it's an act. It's something that we do to satisfy a requirement, but it's not really meaningful to what an employee does. Measuring performance of an individual is called a performance appraisal. So somehow we're going to judge, we're going to put a merit on what they do, whether it's an A to F measure in terms of academic grading, or it's a 1 to 5 measure in terms of employee expectations and performance. Too often, this process is meaningless, and everybody knows it's meaningless. We go through a robust exercise that takes a considerable amount of time and energy on everybody's part, setting hierarchies of goals and objectives that are never looked at again until next year's performance appraisal. Occasionally, if there's a need to let someone go, but truthfully, they're not meaningful, and they're not meaningful, especially to virtual employees. The reality is turnover costs companies money. On average, worker turnover costs about $15,000 to $17,000 per employee. So when we hire new people, it really is to our benefit to hire the people that we want, and then to keep them and support them. Virtual teams are even more complicated because they tend to be ad hoc. They can be spread out all over the globe. The members on the virtual team can be from inside the organization, they can be from outside the organization, hired as a third party kind of consulting or subcontractor. And virtual teams can also be constantly changing. When something isn't working or you decide to go in a new direction, new people are brought in. So how we communicate these uh, expectations for performance is very important. If you're flooding people with emails, if you have email lists with 25 and 50 people on them, if you're getting 30, 40, 50, 100 emails a day, getting emails constantly gets old really fast. And the unresolved issues don't go away. They just go deeper. So again, you need to find ways to communicate in a way that benefits everybody. If you're going to use performance appraisals and performance feedback in a virtual environment, it needs to be almost a constant kind of thing. At the very most, maybe quarterly appraisals, but certainly not a year. A year is way too long to give somebody feedback on how they're performing in the virtual workplace. And you don't want to set boundaries on people other than to differentiate between what's their personal life and what's their working life. We're not going to email you or reach out to you on the weekend because we understand that you need personal time. We're going to try to stop the work communications at 7 or 8 o'clock. And also be aware of time differences. If you're in New York and somebody's in Australia, 7 o'clock tonight is 7 o'clock in the morning. So those global time differences in terms of setting boundaries are something that's necessary. You'll understand when your workers or your team members are in mutiny. I call it mutiny virtual style. And what are the signs that a team is in mutiny? They've lost trust in the leader. There's a lot of gossip going on. People are talking about somebody said this and somebody did that and somebody is this and something went wrong there and oh, didn't you hear? People stop showing up. They don't come to the virtual meetings. They just aren't there. Or if they're there, they're just very quiet. They just don't contribute. You don't get their ideas. You don't get their input. You don't get their innovation. You don't get that kind of collaboration. And they detach. They just don't really care about the results anymore. They don't really care if the project is falling behind. They have a lethargic, detached kind of attitude. Many organizations support a culture that does not trust the worker to do their job and do their job well. And that just is not sustainable in a virtual environment. You must establish that trust. We're not in the age of widgets on the industrial production line. We're in the age of performance appraisals need to focus on developing the individual. That's probably the most important thing. Not to say whether you're doing a good job or you're doing a bad job, but here's where you are. How can we help you? How can we help you develop as an individual so that you can better serve us and you can feel better about you? Learning is everything in a virtual workplace. You must give people the opportunity to advance and to grow. The virtual workplace is not about technologies. A lot of people think we gave them the technologies, they should be able to go out there and do it. The virtual workplace is about the people. This is my book, Touchpoints, Leading and Inspiring in a Virtual Workplace. I thank you.